Charleston, 1946. The morning sun filters through lace curtains, casting delicate shadows across the hardwood floor of Allie's childhood bedroom. The room that has witnessed 16 years of dreams, fears, and whispered secrets to her diary. Today, it will witness the moment that defines the rest of her life. The letter trembles in Allie's hands like a butterfly caught in a storm. 7 years of silence, broken by 14 pages of Noah's handwriting. His words, written in that familiar scrawl she once traced with her fingertips, blurring through her tears. I wrote you 365 letters. I wrote you every day for a year. Every day. While she was learning to be a lady in Charleston society, while she was forgetting the taste of his lips, the sound of his laugh echoing across the lake, while she was letting her mother convince her that love was a luxury they couldn't afford. 365 letters. 365 mornings he woke up thinking of her. 365 nights he went to sleep with her name on his lips. And she never got a single one. Her mother's voice drifts up from the kitchen, discussing flower arrangements with the florist. White roses and baby's breath. Perfect for a perfect wedding to a perfect man. But Lon is downstairs, waiting. Patient as always, kind as always, safe as always. The engagement ring catches the morning light, throwing tiny rainbows across the letter in her hands. 2 carats of security, of respectability, of everything her mother ever wanted for her. Everything except the one thing that sets her soul on fire. She thinks of Noah's hands, rough from working lumber, gentle when they touched her face. The way he looked at her like she was the answer to every question he'd ever asked. The way he made her feel alive, reckless, real. She looks in the mirror. Perfect hair, pinned and sprayed into submission. Perfect dress, chosen by her mother. Perfect life mapped out ahead of her like a roadmap to a destination she never chose. The letter falls to the floor like a dying bird. Downstairs, Lon's voice mingles with her mother's, planning their future, their house in Manhattan, their children who will attend the right schools and marry the right people, and never, ever know what it feels like to love someone so much it hurts. She smooths her dress, picks up her purse, leaves the letter where it fell. Some doors, once closed, can never be opened again. June 12, 1946. 200 guests in their finest attire crowding the pews of St. Michael's Episcopal Church. The same church where her grandmother was married, where her mother walked down this very aisle 25 years ago. White roses everywhere, thousands of them. Their perfume so thick it makes her dizzy. Or maybe that's just the weight of what she's about to do. Her father takes her arm at the altar. His eyes are kind but distant, already calculating the business advantages of this union. Hammond Construction and Nelson Textiles, joined in holy matrimony. The organ swells. Everyone stands. All eyes on her as she takes each step toward a future that feels like walking underwater. Lon waits at the altar in his perfect tuxedo, his perfect hair, his perfect smile. He's handsome in the way that photographs well, the way that makes other women jealous, the way that should make her heart race. But as she walks toward him, all she can think about is another man. Work boots instead of patent leather shoes, calloused hands instead of manicured ones, eyes that saw through to her soul instead of politely admiring her surface. The minister asks who gives this woman to be married. Her father's voice echoes through the cathedral. Her mother and I do. Giving her away, like property, like a business transaction. She should feel angry, but all she feels is empty. The vows blur together. Love, honor, cherish, till death do us part. Words that should mean everything, reduced to recitation. Lon kisses her at the altar. Soft, respectful, appropriate. She closes her eyes and tries to feel something, anything. The crowd cheers. Rice falls like summer rain, sticking to her veil, bouncing off her shoulders. In the back pew, an empty space where her heart used to be. The reception is everything her mother dreamed. Crystal chandeliers casting warm light over tables draped in ivory silk. The best champagne money can buy. Dancing until midnight. She dances with Lon, her new husband, while the band plays The Way You Look Tonight. He holds her close, whispers how beautiful she is, how happy they'll be. But over his shoulder, she sees couples truly in love. The way they look at each other. The way they move together like they're sharing the same heartbeat. She and Lon move like strangers being polite. Later, much later, she sits in the honeymoon suite at the Francis Marion Hotel, still in her wedding dress. Lon is asleep, exhausted from the day that was supposed to be the happiest of their lives. She sits by the window, looking out at the Charleston harbor. Somewhere out there, past the lights of the city, past the islands and the Atlantic, is a small town called Seabrook. And in that town, there's a man who once promised to build her a house. She wonders if he's sleeping tonight, or if he's standing by his window too, feeling the same hollow ache in his chest. Manhattan, 1952. The penthouse on Fifth Avenue overlooks Central Park like a castle surveying its kingdom. 18 rooms of imported marble and crystal, filled with antiques that cost more than most people make in a year. Allie moves through it like a ghost in designer clothing. "Mrs. Hammond, you look absolutely radiant tonight." The voice belongs to Margaret Ashworth, wife of the Secretary of Commerce, her pearl necklace catching the light from the chandelier. "Thank you," Allie replies, her smile automatic after 6 years of practice. "You're too kind." The charity gala is in full swing. Important people saying important things about helping the less fortunate while sipping champagne that costs more than a family's monthly rent. Allie has learned to play this game perfectly. The gracious hostess, the devoted wife, the society maven with impeccable taste and flawless manners. Lon's hand finds her waist, warm and possessive. He's in his element here, discussing business deals and political connections, building the empire that will secure their family's place in New York society for generations. He's kind, successful, everything her mother wanted for her when she was planning this life from her debutante ball. Everything except the one thing that would make any of it matter. She excuses herself and walks to the balcony. The city sparkles below her like a jewelry box. Millions of lights in millions of windows, behind which millions of people are living their real lives. Real love, real passion, real choices. She thinks about the letter she burned 6 years ago. The one that came the day after her wedding, forwarded from Charleston. Noah's handwriting, begging her to meet him one more time, to give them a chance to say goodbye properly. She burned it without reading past the first line. Some regrets are too dangerous to hold on to. But standing here, 23 floors above the real world, she can't help but wonder what would have happened if she'd been brave enough to read it. Brave enough to choose love over security. Brave enough to choose life over existence. Late at night, when Lon sleeps peacefully beside her, Allie stands by the bedroom window in her silk nightgown, watching the city that never sleeps. These are the moments when the mask comes off, when she doesn't have to smile, doesn't have to be gracious, doesn't have to pretend that this beautiful, empty life is enough. In these quiet moments, she lets herself remember. The smell of sawdust and lake water, the feeling of rain on her skin as they danced in the downpour, the way Noah looked at her like she was the first woman ever created, the way he made her laugh until her sides hurt, the way he challenged her to be more than just pretty, more than just well-bred, more than just appropriate, the way he made her feel like herself. She traced patterns on the cold window glass, remembering the patterns his fingers used to draw on her skin. Promises written in touches, futures planned in whispers. Somewhere out there, in some other life, she's dancing in the rain. She touches the glass, cold, like everything else in this perfect prison. The city never sleeps, but dreams do die. And she's been dying inch by inch, day by day, for 6 years. Three beautiful children. Matthew, born in 1947 with his father's serious eyes and gentle disposition. Sarah, born in 1949, spirited and curious, always asking questions that have no easy answers. And little Anne, born in 1952, the baby who completed their perfect family portrait. Allie loves them fiercely, desperately, with the kind of love that makes her chest ache because it's the only real thing in her life. She watches Matthew practice piano, his small fingers stumbling over the keys of the Steinway Grand that dominates their living room. He's talented, gifted even, but he plays like he's afraid of making mistakes, like he's been taught that perfection is more important than passion. "Play it like you feel it, sweetheart," she tells him, sitting beside him on the bench. Music should come from your heart. But even as she says it, she wonders if she's forgotten how to feel anything herself. Sarah comes running through the house like a hurricane, her dress torn from climbing trees in Central Park, her hair wild from adventure. She reminds Allie of someone she used to be, someone who wasn't afraid of getting dirty, who wasn't afraid of being real. "Mama, why do ladies have to wear gloves?" Sarah asks one afternoon, pulling at the white cotton gloves Allie insists she wear to tea parties. "Because it's proper, darling. It's what ladies do." "But my hands get sweaty, and I can't feel anything through them." Allie stops brushing Sarah's hair. "Can't feel anything through them." The metaphor cuts too deep. "Sometimes," she says carefully, "we wear things to protect ourselves, even when they make us feel distant from the world." Sarah considers this with the seriousness of a 7-year-old philosopher. "But don't you want to feel things, Mama? Even if they might hurt?" The brush trembles in Allie's hand. Out of the mouths of babes, little Anne toddles around the apartment on unsteady legs, grabbing onto furniture, fearless in the way only children can be. She has Allie's smile, but Lon's cautious nature. And sometimes Allie wonders what kind of woman she'll become. Will she choose safety over adventure? Security over love? Will she make the same mistakes her mother made? But sometimes, tucking them into bed, reading fairy tales about princesses who choose love over kingdoms, she wonders about other children. Children with different eyes. Children who might have inherited Noah's wild hair and crooked smile. Children who would have grown up near the water, learning to fish and swim and build things with their hands. Children who would have been raised to follow their hearts instead of their bank accounts. The thought feels like betrayal, but she can't stop herself from wondering. 1953, the Korean War ends. Television becomes common in American homes. Allie serves on the board of 3 charities and hosts a weekly salon for society wives. 1954, Brown versus Board of Education. Allie watches the news and thinks about justice, about courage, about people willing to fight for what's right. She writes a check to the NAACP and doesn't tell Lon. 1955, Rosa Parks refuses to give up her seat. Allie thinks about the courage it takes to say no to the way things have always been, to choose principle over convenience. She's never had that kind of courage. 1956, Grace Kelly marries Prince Rainier. The world watches a fairy tale wedding, and Allie remembers her own wedding day. How different they looked from the outside, how empty it felt from the inside. Benefits, galas, summer houses in the Hamptons, where the children play on manicured beaches while she sits under umbrellas, reading novels about women who make different choices. Every photograph perfect, every smile practiced in mirrors until it becomes as automatic as breathing. The children grow. Matthew starts at Groton, following in his father's footsteps. Sarah rebels against cotillion classes, preferring to read about explorers and scientists. Anne begins dance lessons, graceful as a swan, beautiful as a porcelain doll. Lon's business thrives. Hammond Construction builds half of Manhattan's new skyscrapers. They buy a house in Westchester for weekends, a place with rolling hills and horses and everything money can provide. Everything except the thing that makes a house a home. Friends envy her life. "You have everything, Allie," they say over lunch at the plaza, their voices tinged with jealousy. The perfect husband, beautiful children, this gorgeous life. Everything, except the part of her soul she left behind in Seabrook. She starts volunteering at a women's shelter, drawn to the stories of women who had the courage to leave everything behind for the chance at something real. They arrive with nothing but the clothes on their backs and the hope that tomorrow might be different from yesterday. She envies them their bravery. 1957. The children are older now, needing her less. Matthew is away at school most of the year. Sarah spends her afternoons at the library, lost in books about faraway places. Anne has friends from ballet class, proper little girls from proper families. Allie finds herself with time on her hands and nowhere to put the restlessness that grows stronger each year. She takes art classes at the Metropolitan Museum. Watercolors, like she used to paint during that summer in Seabrook. Her hands remember the movements, but the paintings feel flat, lifeless. She's painting with technique instead of emotion. The instructor, an elderly woman with paint-stained fingers and knowing eyes, pulls her aside after class. "Your work is very accomplished, Mrs. Hammond. Technically perfect. Thank you. But where's your heart in it? What are you trying to say?" Allie stares at her latest painting, a still life of flowers in a crystal vase. Beautiful, meaningless. "I don't know anymore," she admits. "Then that's where you need to start. Not with the flowers, with the not knowing." That night, Allie dreams of painting a house by a lake. A white house with blue shutters, surrounded by wild gardens instead of formal arrangements. In her dream, her hands are dirty with paint and earth, and she's never been happier. She wakes up crying. 1958. Lon comes home from work with news that changes everything. "The State Department offered me a position in London," he says over dinner, his voice careful, watching her reaction. "Cultural attaché. It would be a significant step up, and the children could attend excellent schools there." London, an ocean away from everything familiar. From the children's friends, from her routine, from the life they've built, from any possibility of ever accidentally running into Noah. "What do you think?" he asks. She looks at her family around the dinner table. Matthew, home from school for the holidays, already talking about Oxford. Sarah, eyes bright with the possibility of adventure. Anne, young enough that anywhere would be home as long as they're together. They want to go, all of them. Even Lon, though he's trying to hide his excitement out of consideration for her feelings. "It sounds wonderful," she hears herself say. "A new adventure." Lon's relief is visible. "We'd leave in the spring, start fresh." Start fresh, as if you can run from the choices you've made. As if geography can heal the wounds you've carved into your own heart. But maybe distance will help. Maybe an ocean between her and her old life will finally allow her to stop looking back. Maybe she can learn to be happy with what she has, instead of mourning what she never allowed herself to want. 1959. London is gray and beautiful and full of history. They live in a townhouse in Belgravia, with proper English gardens and neighbors who've had titles for centuries. The children adapt quickly. Matthew thrives at his new school, making friends with boys whose families have known each other for generations. Sarah discovers the British Museum and spends hours wandering among artifacts from civilizations that dared to dream beyond their circumstances. Anne starts at a prestigious dance academy, her talent finally getting the recognition it deserves. Allie joins the American Women's Club, organizes charity luncheons, learns to appreciate tea and crumpets and conversations about the weather. But on the rare sunny days, when light streams through the windows of their beautiful house, she finds herself painting again. Not still lifes this time, but landscapes. Fields she's never seen. Lakes that look suspiciously like the one where she learned what love felt like. The paintings are better now. Still not perfect, but real, honest. She hides them in the attic, where no one will ask questions about the longing in every brushstroke. 1963. Coffee growing cold in her hands as she sits in the conservatory of their London home, reading the international edition of the Charleston Post and Courier that arrives 3 weeks late. London has been good for the family. The children are thriving. Lon's career is soaring, and she's learned to find contentment in the rhythm of English life. 4 years of distance have helped her build walls around the part of her heart that used to ache. But sometimes, when she's not vigilant, when her guard is down, the past slips through the cracks. Local man builds dream house. Noah Calhoun restores historic plantation. The photograph shows him, older now, 40 years old, the same age she is. The boy she loved has become a man, but his eyes are the same. Still beautiful, still intense, still looking at something beyond the camera, still alone. Her hands trembled as she read the article. He bought the old plantation house on the Stono River, the one they used to drive past during their summer together, the one where he pointed out the widow's walk and promised he'd build her something even more beautiful someday. "It's taken me 16 years, he's quoted as saying, "but I finally found the right place to call home." 16 years. The same amount of time since she walked away from him without explanation, without goodbye, without giving him the chance to fight for what they had. The article goes on to describe the restoration. Original hardwood floors, hand-carved banisters, a wraparound porch overlooking the water. Every detail exactly as he described it to her during those stolen afternoons when they planned a future that seemed as real as the sun on their skin. Her fingers traced his face through the newsprint. The boy who taught her to row a boat, who caught fireflies with her in mason jars, who kissed her like she was the answer to every prayer he'd ever whispered. 17 years of wondering, answered in black and white. He's still there, still waiting. She read the article 3 more times before she realized she's crying. "Mummy, are you all right?" Anne's voice, concerned. She's 14 now, beautiful and graceful, preparing for her debut next year. "I'm fine, darling. Just something in my eye." But Anne is smart, observant. She glanced at the newspaper, at the photograph of a man her mother is staring at, like he holds the secret to every question she's ever asked. "Who is he?" "Someone I knew a long time ago." "He's handsome." "Yes," Allie whispered. "He was. He is." That night, she cut out the article and hid it between the pages of her journal, next to the pressed flowers she saved from their last walk together. 17-year-old evidence of a love that was supposed to die, but never did. She didn't tell Lon about the article. How could she? How do you explain to your husband that you've been carrying another man's heart in your chest for 17 years? But something changed after that day. She started buying the Charleston paper regularly, searching for any mention of Noah Calhoun. There were small articles over the years. Charity work, community involvement, building homes for families who lost everything in storms, still giving of himself, still alone. 1965. Lon's assignment in London ends and they return to New York. The children are older now, more independent. Matthew is at Harvard, studying business like his father. Sarah is at Vassar, majoring in archaeology, determined to uncover lost civilizations. Anne is in her final year of high school, already accepted to Juilliard for dance. Their Manhattan penthouse felt smaller somehow, after the sprawling London townhouse. Or maybe she's the one who's grown, expanded beyond the confines of the life she thought she wanted. She's 42 years old, still beautiful, though lines were starting to appear around her eyes. Lines from smiling when she didn't mean it, from squinting against the truth of her own life. Lon talked about slowing down, about spending more time together now that the children are grown, about travel, about the retirement they'll share, about grandchildren who would fill the house with laughter. It sounded lovely, safe, empty. She started painting more seriously, took studio space in Greenwich Village, among artists who cared more about truth than technique. Her work grew bolder, more honest. She painted storm clouds and turbulent seas, emotions she's never allowed herself to express in words. Other artists respected her work, even if they didn't understand the sadness that permeated every canvas. "Your paintings are haunting," said James, a sculptor who worked in the studio next to hers. "Like you're painting loss itself." "Maybe I am. What do you lose?" "Myself," she said, and realized it's the most honest thing she said in 20 years. One by one, They built their own lives. Matthew married a girl from a good family, someone appropriate who would give him appropriate children and an appropriate life. Sarah became Dr. Hammond, leading archaeological expeditions to places Allie could only dream about. Anne danced with the American Ballet Theater, her life a constant tour of stages around the world. They visited for holidays, called on Sundays, sent postcards from their adventures. They loved her, but they didn't need her anymore. For the first time since she was 17, Allie was alone with her thoughts. And her thoughts kept drifting south, to a white house with blue shutters and a man who once promised to love her forever. She wrote letters she never sent, hundreds of them, stored in a box in her studio. Apologies for running away. Explanations for choices that made no sense even to her. Questions about the life he's lived without her. Confessions of love that never died, only hibernated, waiting for a brave enough moment to wake up. That moment never came. 1992. Lon had a heart attack at the office. Massive, the doctor said. He's lucky to survive. But survival and living are different things. He retired, officially this time. They spent quiet days in their Westchester house, reading, gardening, pretending that the space between them was companionable silence instead of 25 years of unspoken truths. He knew. He's always known. Not the details, maybe not even the name, but he knew there's a part of her heart that was never his. "I tried to make you happy," he said one afternoon out of nowhere. They were sitting on the terrace, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of regret. "You did make me happy," she lied, "because what else was there to say?" "No," he said quietly. "I made you comfortable. I made you secure, but I never made you alive." The words hung between them like an accusation neither of them wanted to examine too closely. "Lon, it's okay, Allie. I knew what I was getting when I married you. I knew you were settling for me instead of fighting for someone else." "That's not true." "Isn't it?" She wanted to argue, but the words stuck in her throat, because it was true, and they both knew it, and pretending otherwise at this point seemed cruel. "I loved you," she said instead. "I know. In your way, you did love me, and I loved you enough for both of us for a very long time." Loved, past tense. He died in his sleep on a Tuesday morning in April 1993. Peaceful, the doctor said. No pain. Allie sat beside his still body and wondered if she should feel more devastated than she did. Grief, yes. Loss, certainly. But not the soul-crushing, world-ending devastation that should come with losing your life partner. Instead, she felt untethered, free, in a way that terrified her. At the funeral, people talked about what a wonderful marriage they had, 47 years together, an inspiration to younger couples, the perfect love story. If only they knew. The children worried about her living alone. They wanted her to move to a retirement community, somewhere with activities and people her own age. "I'm not ready to be put out to pasture," she told them. "I'm 70 years old, not 90. But the truth was, she didn't know what she was ready for. At 70, what options did a woman have? What dreams were still possible? She sold the Manhattan penthouse, kept the Westchester house. It's too big for one person, but it had good light for painting, and she's finally brave enough to paint what she felt instead of what she thought she should feel. Her canvases exploded with color now. Sunset skies and stormy seas and gardens wild with untamed flowers. The paintings she never had the courage to create when she was young and afraid of being real. Gallery owners were interested. Her work could sell, they said, could hang in real galleries, not just charity auctions. But she wasn't painting for anyone else anymore. She was painting for the girl she used to be, the one who died a little more each year until only the ghost of her remained. The girl who knew how to love without counting the cost. October 1994. Lon had been dead for 18 months. The children had finally stopped calling every day to check on her. She was reading the Charleston paper again, a habit she'd never quite shaken, when she saw the smaller article buried on page 7. Local business owner celebrates completion of historic restoration. It was him again, but this time, the house in the photograph looked exactly like the one he described to her 50 years ago. White clapboard siding, blue shutters, a wraparound porch with rocking chairs facing the water. Exactly like the house she's been painting in her dreams for decades. The article mentioned that he's never married, that the house was built for someone special who never came back, that he still held out hope that someday she might find her way home. Someday. She's 70 years old. Her hair was silver, her hands marked with age spots, her body bearing the weight of 7 decades of choices, both made and unmade. But her heart was still 17, still standing in the rain, still dancing to music only Noah could hear. Someday might be all she had left. For 3 weeks, the newspaper article sits on her kitchen table. She moves it when she eats, when she pays bills, when she pretends to read other things. But always, it finds its way back to the center of her life. The children call, as they always do. Matthew from his law firm in Boston, talking about his latest case. Sarah from a dig site in Egypt, her voice crackling over international lines as she describes unearthing a 3,000-year-old pottery shard. Anne from whatever city the ballet has taken her to this week, breathless with the exhaustion and exhilaration that comes from living your dreams. They ask how she's doing, if she's eating enough, if she's lonely. "I'm fine," she tells them, the same lie she's been telling for 70 years. But she's not fine. She's dying, one regret at a time. On a Tuesday morning in November, she wakes up and knows. Today is the day she stops running from the life she should have lived. She calls her doctor and cancels her afternoon appointment. Calls the gallery and tells them she won't be bringing new paintings this week. Calls her housekeeper and gives her the rest of the month off. Then she goes to her closet and chooses what to wear to meet the love of her life after 48 years. Not the designer clothes Lon preferred. Not the pearls and proper dresses that marked her as a society wife. Instead, she chooses a simple blue dress, the color of summer skies and promises made by lakes that remember everything. She packs a small bag, not because she's planning to stay, but because she needs to believe she has options. That courage, once found, might lead to choices she's never been brave enough to make. The Mercedes feels too formal, too much like the woman she became instead of the woman she was. So she rents a car, something small and unremarkable that won't announce her arrival like a declaration of war against her own past. The drive from New York to South Carolina takes 8 hours. 8 hours to travel the distance between who she is and who she might have been. She stops for gas in Virginia and realizes her hands are shaking. Not from age, though they bear the marks of 7 decades. From fear, from anticipation, from the terrible, wonderful possibility that some stories get second chances. She stops for lunch in North Carolina and can barely eat. The waitress, a woman in her 40s with kind eyes and calloused hands, asks if she's all right. "I'm going to see someone I haven't seen in a very long time," Allie says. "That's exciting," the waitress says. "Family? Something like that." "Well, honey, life's too short for putting things off. Good for you for making the trip." Life's too short. At 70, Allie knows this better than most. Too short for the life she lived. Maybe not too short for the life she still might choose. She crosses the South Carolina state line as the sun begins to set, painting the sky in shades of memory. The landscape looks different than she remembers, but the feeling is the same. The sense of coming home to a place that lives more in her heart than in geography. She follows the directions she memorized from the newspaper article. Back roads that wind through farmland and small towns where nothing much has changed since 1946. Past the lake where they used to swim, now dotted with houses she doesn't recognize. But the water is the same. Water remembers everything. She sees it from a quarter-mile away, exactly as he described it all those years ago. White clapboard siding gleaming in the dying light. Blue shutters that match the dress she chose without knowing why. A wraparound porch with rocking chairs facing the water, as if their only purpose is to watch and wait. It's beautiful, perfect, everything he promised it would be, everything she never let herself believe in. Her hands gripped the steering wheel as she pulled into the gravel driveway. The sound of tires on stone seemed too loud, too intrusive, like disturbing a prayer that's been going on for half a century. She sits in the car for 10 minutes, trying to find the courage to bridge the last 50 feet between who she was and who she is. The front door opened, and there he was, 71 years old now, his hair silver instead of brown, his face lined by time and weather and the weight of waiting. But his eyes were exactly the same. The eyes that looked at her like she was the first woman ever created. The eyes that saw through all her careful masks to the wild. Real girl underneath. He didn't move from the porch, didn't run to her or call her name. Just stood there, drinking in the sight of her like a man who's been lost in the desert, finally finding water. She got out of the car on legs that felt like they belonged to someone else, someone braver, someone who deserved a second chance at the life she threw away. Allie. His voice, deeper now, but still the same. Still the only voice that ever made her real name sound like music. Hello, Noah. 48 years collapse into the space between them. The girl who danced in the rain, and the woman who learned to live without dancing. The boy who promised to wait forever, and the man who kept that promise. You came. I came. He stepped down from the porch, moving carefully but still strong. Still beautiful in the way that has nothing to do with youth, and everything to do with the soul that lives behind his eyes. I wasn't sure you'd gotten the message. What message? The interview. I told the reporter about the house, about it being built for someone special who never came back. I thought maybe if you ever read it. He'd been calling to her through newspaper ink and the slim hope that she still cared enough to look for news of him. I read it, she whispered. And you came. And I came. They stood there in the twilight, two people who loved each other more than life itself, and then spent 50 years learning how to live without that love. You're beautiful, he says, and she believes him because Noah never learned how to lie. I'm old. We both are. Doesn't make it less true. Noah, I don't, he says gently. Not yet. Come inside first. Let me make you some tea. Let me look at you for a minute before we talk about all the things that went wrong. The inside of the house took her breath away. Not because it's grand, it's not, but because every detail, every choice, every corner spoke of love and hope and the stubborn refusal to give up on dreams. The living room had a stone fireplace and windows that faced the water. Built-in bookshelves lined the walls, filled with volumes on architecture and history and poetry. Art covered every available surface, but not museum pieces. Local artists, amateur painters, children's drawings framed like masterpieces. I taught art classes, he explained, following her gaze, at the community center. Figured if I couldn't make art with my life, at least I could help other people make some with theirs. In the corner sat an easel with a half-finished painting. A woman dancing in the rain, her face turned up to the sky, her arms outstretched like she's embracing the storm. She stopped in front of it, her heart hammering against her ribs. It's beautiful. It's you, he said simply. I've been painting you for 48 years. The kitchen was worn and honey-colored, with a table for two and windows that caught the morning light. He made tea the way she used to like it, with honey instead of sugar, and she realized he'd remembered everything. Every small detail of their brief, brilliant summer together. Tell me about your life, he said, settling across from her at the table that was built for conversations just like this. What do you want to know? Everything. The parts that made you happy, the parts that didn't, the children you raised, the places you've been, the woman you became. So she told him about Matthew and Sarah and Anne, about London and art classes and the shelter where she volunteered, about Lon's kindness and her guilt about not loving him the way he deserved, about the paintings hidden in her attic, the letters she wrote but never sent, the nights she stood by windows and wondered if he was looking at the same stars, about the life she built and the woman she became and the love she never got over. He listened without judgment, his eyes never leaving her face, his hands wrapped around his teacup like it's an anchor keeping him steady in the storm of her story. "Your turn," she said when her voice finally ran out. "What do you want to know? Why you never married?" He's quiet for a long time, staring out at the water that reflected the last light of day. "I tried," he said finally. "Twice. Actually, good women. Kind women. Women who deserved better than a man who was still in love with someone else. Noah, I know it sounds pathetic, waiting all this time for someone who chose someone else. My friends, my family, they all told me to move on, to stop building a shrine to a summer romance. But they didn't understand. What we had, it wasn't a summer romance. It was the real thing, the once-in-a-lifetime, change everything, worth waiting forever kind of love." He looked at her then, and she saw the boy he was in the man he became. "I couldn't settle for less than that. Not after I'd known what it felt like to love someone so much it changed the shape of my soul." They talked until midnight, filling in the gaps of 48 years with words and silences and the comfortable rhythm of two people who know each other's hearts. He told her about the lumber business he built from nothing, about the houses he designed for young couples starting their lives together, about his parents' deaths, his friends' marriages, the godchildren who call him Uncle Noah and don't understand why he lives alone in a house too big for one person. She told him about gallery showings and charity boards, and the careful dance of society life. About watching her children grow into people she admired but didn't quite understand. About the weight of choices made and unmade, and the slow realization that a life can look perfect from the outside while feeling empty from within. "Do you regret it?" he asked as the clock struck 12. "The life you chose? How can I regret my children? They're the best thing I ever did." "That's not what I asked." She's quiet for a long time, looking out at the water that held the reflection of stars. "Every day," she whispered, "I regret it every single day. I'm sorry." "For what?" "For not fighting harder. For letting you go without a real fight. You couldn't have stopped me. I was too young, too afraid, too convinced that love wasn't enough to build a life on. And now I know that love is the only thing worth building a life on. Everything else is just decoration." He showed her to the guest room, though they both knew sleep wouldn't come easily. The room was simple and beautiful, with white linens and windows that faced the garden. On the nightstand, there was a book of poetry, the same collection they used to read to each other by the lake. "I thought you might like to have something to read," he said, and she knew he'd placed it there deliberately. Another message, another bridge across the years. She lay awake, listening to the house settle around her, to the sound of water against the shore, to the rhythm of Noah's breathing in the room next door. It's a sound she remembered from their stolen afternoons, when they would nap together in hidden places, her head on his chest, his heartbeat her lullaby. Some things, she realized, were too deep to be forgotten, written into the muscle and bone of who you are. She woke to the smell of coffee and bacon, to sunlight streaming through windows she'd never seen before, but that felt like home. Noah was in the kitchen, making breakfast with the easy competence of a man who's learned to take care of himself. "Good morning, beautiful." "Good morning." They ate on the porch, watching the sun turn the water into liquid gold. It should feel strange, this domestic intimacy with a man she hadn't seen in half a century. Instead, it felt like the most natural thing in the world. Like they're picking up a conversation that was interrupted, rather than starting a new one. "What happens now?" she asked, as they finished their coffee. "What do you want to happen?" "I don't know. I'm 70 years old, Noah. Too old for grand gestures and dramatic life changes. Are you? Aren't I?" He reached across the table and took her hand. His fingers were rough from work, gentle from love, familiar in a way that made her chest ache. "Allie, I've spent 48 years building a house for a woman who might never come home. You think I'm going to let a little thing like age stop me from believing in second chances? The children are grown adults who want their mother to be happy. Society can go to hell. Noah, "Stay," he said simply. "Not forever if you don't want to. Not even for long if that's too much. But stay for today, for this week. For however long it takes to figure out if what we had is still here." She looked around the porch, at the house he built for her, at the life he's constructed around the possibility of her return. She thought about her empty house in Westchester, her paintings that no one saw, her days that blurred into weeks, that blurred into years of beautiful, meaningless routine. She thought about the girl she used to be, who wasn't afraid of getting dirty or taking chances or following her heart into uncertain territory. She thought about the woman she became, who learned to choose safety over adventure, security over passion, the expected over the desired. And she thought about the woman she might still become, if she's brave enough to trust in love one more time. "I can't promise you anything," she said. "I'm not asking for promises. I'm asking for a chance. The children will worry. We'll call them. People will talk. Let them. I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to be the woman you're remembering. You don't have to be her. Be who you are now. Be who you've become. I fell in love with your soul, Allie, not your 17-year-old face." She closed her eyes and felt the morning sun on her skin, heard the water lapping against the shore, smelled the scent of jasmine blooming in the garden Noah planted for her. For the first time in 48 years, she stopped thinking about what she should do and asked herself what she wanted to do. The answer was so simple, it took her breath away. "Okay," she whispered. "Okay? I'll stay. For a while. For as long as it takes to figure out who we are now." Noah's smile could power the entire eastern seaboard. "That's all I've ever wanted," he said. "A chance to figure out who we are together." And so Allie stayed. Not forever, because forever is a word that carries too much weight for hearts that have been broken and mended too many times. But for now, for the autumn of their lives, when the light was golden and the air was crisp and the possibility of love felt like a gift they never expected to receive, she called her children, who were surprised and then delighted to hear something like joy in their mother's voice for the first time in their memory. She called her housekeeper and asked her to pack some clothes, some painting supplies, some books. She called her lawyer and made arrangements for the house in Westchester to be maintained in her absence. She didn't call it moving, she called it visiting, an extended stay, a sabbatical from the life she's always lived. But in her heart, she knew the truth. She's come home. Noah gave her the room that faced the water, the one with the easel and the morning light. He didn't push, didn't demand, didn't expect anything except the gift of her presence in his carefully constructed life. They learned each other again, slowly. The way she took her coffee now, with cream instead of black. The way he read the newspaper, starting with the obituaries, because at their age, each day above ground was a victory. The way they both moved a little slower, thought a little longer, held a little tighter to the things that mattered. They talked about their children, their losses, their dreams deferred and dreams fulfilled. They took long walks by the water, her hand in his. Two people who have finally learned that love isn't something you have to earn, or deserve, or prove worthy of. It's something you choose, every day, despite the risks and the heartbreak and the absolute certainty that it will end someday. They visited the places they used to go, now changed by time and development, but still holding echoes of their younger selves. The dock where he taught her to fish, the field where they had their first kiss, the tree where he carved their initials, now grown over, but still there if you know where to look. She started painting again, but not the landscapes of longing she's been creating for decades. She painted their life together, the morning light on Noah's face as he read, his hands working in the garden, the view from their bedroom window at sunset. She painted the present, not the past. The love they have now, seasoned by loss and sweetened by the knowledge that it's precious because it's finite. The children visited for Christmas, Matthew brought his wife and teenage sons, who were fascinated by Noah's stories of building houses and living simply. Sarah came straight from a dig in Peru, her clothes still dusty with ancient soil, her eyes bright with discoveries and adventures. Anne brought her latest boyfriend, a dancer who moved like poetry and made Noah laugh with his impressions of stuffy ballet critics. They liked him, her children. More than that, they saw what he saw in her, what he's always seen, the woman underneath the careful layers of propriety and protection, the mother who taught them to follow their hearts, even though she spent decades ignoring her own. "You're happy," Sarah said on their last morning, sitting with her mother on the porch where Allie now drank her coffee every day. "Yes," Allie said, and realized it's the first time she said that word without reservation in 50 years. "I am." "Good. You deserve to be happy. So do you all. We learned that from you. Even when you weren't happy yourself, you taught us that love was worth fighting for." After they left, Allie and Noah sat in their rocking chairs and watched the sunset over water that reflected their faces. Older now, but not old. Not when they're looking at each other. "Any regrets?" he asked, the question that's become their evening ritual. About this? Never. About before? She considered this, as she always did. About the life she lived, the choices she made, the years they lost. "I can't regret the path that led me here," she said finally. "Even the mistakes, even the pain, it all brought me back to you." "I love you, Allie Hamilton." "I love you too, Noah Calhoun." And in the growing darkness, with stars beginning to emerge and the water whispering secrets to the shore, two hearts that found each other across half a century of separation finally beat in the same rhythm. Some love stories end with first kisses and wedding bells. This one ends with a choice made twice by the same two people. Once at 17, when they were brave enough to fall in love. Once at 70, when they were brave enough to choose love again. The rest is just details. The rest is just life. The one who chose love over safety. The one who danced in the rain. The one who lived.